Well, so far I'm continuing with the work. You can see it's starting to get really messy now with all the tools and bits and pieces all over the place. Obviously I try to keep organised as I'm working, trying to keep the environment clean, etc, etc. But one of the things I wanted to mention, which is a lot of times overlooked when buying an old van, is how the floors or the condition of the fixtures between the floor, the ply and the chassis. Now with these old vans, they basically used rivets, and now of course after 30, 40, 50 years those rivets will fatigue and they will start to break. Now I've done an initial check of the van's flooring and to see what the condition of these rivets were, and then I've discovered that they were in fact quite broken, and I thought, well, you know, I might as well just do the lot. So what I've been doing here is this is the original rivet that I've been ripping out. I don't know if you can see that. I've got more of those, but basically what happens is they sit on there flush and you think, oh yeah, that's you know, it's okay, but what you've got to do is you've got to move it. And of course I've been now ripping the heads off, and then what I've been doing is I've been using a punch and a drill and a rubber mallet to punch the second part of the rivet off, the rivet on the other side of the chassis. So basically it's separated between the rivet base and the rivet head here, and you can see, oh, well, if you can, if it's in focus, you can see where it's snapped off. Now I've got a whole bunch of them here, and you can see the condition. Here they are here, and you can see how corroded they are. These are aluminium and they just snapped. They're just very weak. Now, how do you tell whether or not your floors are loose? Well, this is one example I'll show you. You get underneath, right, so you get underneath like this and you just push up, look at that, and you can see all of that is loose. Hey? So of course I've started removing these rivets, so naturally they're going to be that loose, but that's one way to tell. The other way that you can tell almost instantly is when you walk inside the van. It's got that spongy feel about it, that flexy feel. Then you know that that's another issue there. I mean, hopefully it's only just a fastener issue, not that the ply is starting to separate, which also can give you that spongy feel as well. So what I've done is I've started working through the back and on the sides. So for example, in here I've removed them there, and you can see the original factory line mark where they've actually marked the drill spot according to the in alignment with the chassis. But you can imagine that we've got probably another couple of runners, the chassis rails that run all across, which means that I'm going to have to take each of these, well, not each, they're approximately 30 centimeters apart, these drill holes. So basically we've got one that's here and one that was about here and one that's roughly here, and so on and so forth. So you know, I went underneath the chassis and just used the tape measure to roughly measure the distance between them. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. It's kind of sidetracked me a bit, but anyway, it's got to be done. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to be replacing the outer ones. So these ones here, for example, the ones along the edge of the outer rails, the chassis rails, I'm actually going to be replacing those with nuts and bolts. And then the inner ones, I'll just be doing it with the standard rivets. And I've bought these rivets, and I was very, very lucky that I was able to get rivets which are almost identical to the originals. All right, so it's been, this is the 4th afternoon, I think, that I've been, my man and I have been doing the rivets and the bolts. We've already completed all the bolts around the perimeter. So these ones in the corners here, and all around the corners there. We've also put them in inside there, and also in the kitchen area, and of course in each of those bunks. So we've actually done more than just the perimeter. And now I'm up to this area here, just underneath the diner where the torch is. Effectively, that's all that's left for me to do. There's probably about, I looked underneath this, about 5 or 6 rivets that are left as far as I can see. So I'll show you what I've been doing again in terms of removing the tile and the rivet and putting the new rivet in. Okay, so I think there's probably one on this tile here, and unfortunately when I mentioned earlier that they're about 30 or 40 centimeters apart going up the chassis rails, it's not quite accurate. They haven't kept true to that length, so it's a bit of a getting under the van, having a look, making an assumption or a best guess, and then going from there. So the first thing I need to do is loosen the tile, so I'll use that using the heat gun. See if I can make it easy for you to see. You can see I'm just peeling it up like that. Okay. And there is the rivet right there. Right there. Okay, I'll just aim it there. Now the next thing I'll do is I'll grab the vacuum cleaner, because don't forget this is an adhesive tile and I don't want all the swarf and all the rubbish to actually get into the adhesive section. So I'm going to be doing a bit of vacuuming while I'm driving that rivet out. Okay, rivet is out, and the next step now is to obviously put the new one in. So and that's it. So new rivets in there, and I'm using this tool here, which is a two-hander. It actually is a lot easier to use than the traditional one which I was using earlier on, which was that, and that was effectively breaking the rivet stem in half. So to give you an idea, here's the rivet, and rather than snapping it clean like you've just seen there, what was happening, it was just snapping it around here. And so I had to actually then, so it'll snap it, and that's what will be left, and then I would have to take the rest out. Anyway, so we've got that in there, and the tile has now gone cold, which is to be expected. So now we'll use the heat gun again, and I just give it a bit of a heating, just like that. Not too much, because unfortunately being a lino, they do expand, and you end up with the lino overlapping the next one, the one next to it. So if I put my hand on here, it's actually quite warm to touch. That's about as hot as I make it.